I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
Mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Tiger Spotlight. This is National Principals Month. Marshall Public Schools is fortunate to have 8 principals that lead the way for our students and staff. Principals work day and night to ensure their students have what they need to be successful. Please help us in thanking our 8 principals for their work in educating, supporting, and preparing all learners for success. If you see them this week or want to drop them a card or something, I'm sure they'd appreciate that. Public forum. This is the time. Is anybody in the public that'd like to approach the board? Now is your time. Moving on to our presentation. Mr. Williams, welcome.
You are as excited about this as I am.
Oh, we are.
All right, I wanted to walk through some of the data with you guys. I'm going to go look at some MCA data and some NWA data. So first thing I wanted to show is some demographics, and this isn't probably something that's new to you guys, but just looking at some things that stood out to me, and I'll highlight a few things, but not everything on the slides. Looking at free and reduced percentages is something that stood out to me, especially at our elementary schools. Parkside, we're at 50%, 54%. Westside was at 56% last year, so that really stood out as over half of our kids being free and reduced lunch. Also, the EL percentages, looking at Westside was 24 last year and Parkside was 25, so it's really big at our elementary schools. Those demographics are growing. To middle school, free and reduced was 45%, and EL was 8% at the middle school last year.
And Jeremy, just so the public knows on TV, the free and reduced means they qualify
For free and reduced
lunch,
lunches.
and that means they're at the poverty level, correct?
Correct, right. Yep, that'd be the measure for the poverty level. So just seeing that demographic grow means that that impacts our educational programming.
Jeremy, just in looking at those, why do you think the high school free and reduced number is quite a bit lower than all of our other
I think
buildings?
part of it is we've got feeder schools that come into the high school that don't have as many EL kids, so their ratio looks different when they get there. Some of
That
those
makes
kids aren't
sense.
at our elementary schools. And some of it is we're getting new families in with younger kids and some of these other levels, so. Yeah, high school, we're at 35% high school free and reduced, and EL was just over 11% last year, so. Certainly plays into our staffing and, like I say, programming issues at those schools. Maytech I put up here as well, and something to consider with Maytech throughout all the slides that I'm showing you this evening, is Maytech was a very small number of students. When we get to testing, especially break it down to one grade level, it's not a lot of kids we're looking at. So some of the data looks skewed when you compare it to the whole of like the high school with so many more kids. So the first one I'm going to show you is cohort MCA math. So this is looking at the MCA data specific to math scores. The highlights are comparing the cohort, how they did the previous year. So if that group of kids was lower number of kids, percentage of kids proficient on the test that year. So it's a different test, but it's looking at the same group of kids. It's red. Green is that group of students, their proficiency level increased from the previous year. And that's the 18-19 column. And then we get to the far right, you're looking at Marshall Public Schools compared to the state averages in each of those areas. So a lot of green, a lot of areas we were above. Some areas I wanted to highlight on there, we're looking at the 5th grade and the 8th grade. We always do really well at those grade levels, looking at math, very strong there. And then high school did very well as well. When we get to the bottom, I put all of our 11th graders in one column that includes Maytech High School together, and then I broke them out so you can see the separate, how that splits out, and then just the totals at the bottom. Maytech on this one, for example, there are 14 students that took the math test at Maytech last year. So when I talk about small numbers, that's one of the spots we look at that. Reading, the chart is the same way, a little more red in there. We got some work to do in some of the growth things, but certainly when we get in here, you'll see where we're seeing a lot of growth in reading as well. So we like to look at it in multiple ways because one chart only shows the data from one perspective. So with reading the Maytech numbers, we only had 7 students take the reading test. So it's 10th graders that take the reading test. So very small number of kids there taking that test.
So do we have programs to catch that up? Because I know one reason our math scores are higher is because we put in extra teachers, extra time, extra money.
Yeah.
So do we have a plan for reading?
We're doing a number of things with reading, yeah. Some approaches where we're really targeting what the specific needs are with the kids, trying some different assessments to break things down, especially at the elementary level, bring that in the middle school this year, and then talking about how can we meet the very specific needs of each student versus trying to meet the needs of the whole class at a time. And that's when I get to the growth later on the North Star report, you'll see some things that look very encouraging. And I think that has a lot to do with the work that teachers are doing in that regard. Here's our NWA. The first one I'm going to show you the NWA. This is looking at the growth. So this is fall to spring growth, comparing their fall score to their spring score. And the number is the percentage of students that met their growth target. The growth target for each student is an individualized number. So it's did each student meet their individual. The colors go by cohort again, so that's why it kind of follows at an angle for teachers looking at within their grade level. This is one too where the teachers have individual student data. They spend a lot of time looking at this one. We've used NWA for a number of years. Nice thing, it's a K-12 measure, so it can really break down and say what's going well, where are some areas we're struggling, down to the specific student, but even looking at whole grade level, what worked well last year and what didn't. So NWA we give 3 times a year. Locally, MCA is only once a year. So this is looking at fall to spring data. We do give a winter mid-year test too to see how we're doing. And reading I have as well to share. Just like the other one, the colors go by cohorts, looking at how that group did from one year to the next, and then looking across grade levels as well. So I can say programmatically, are we doing some things that are working, and do we have some challenges? And it's nice to look at, sometimes as a cohort of kids, say this cohort of kids needs just something different as we're thinking about interventions and that sort of thing that we're providing.
You look back at like 14, 15 compared to now, we've made great strides.
Right. Right.
31%.
Right. That's what I like with the historical data. You're not looking at just one year to the next. You can see growth over a number of years. So a lot of time there are a lot of good things happening when you really dig into that. The next couple I'm going to show is proficiency. We call it proficiency. NWA has what's called a norm RIT score. So it's a nationally used test, and they take the average score of all the third graders, for example, across the country, and then that's the norm score. So we shoot for that as the proficient level for the students. It's really just measuring, are they at that average level across the country? So, and comparing each grade level again by cohort. We've got for reading and math are included for you to take a look at. It's something that we use a lot when we're in the buildings, the skip plans. I know each site is working on those right now. They use this when they're setting their goals, looking at how have classes traditionally done and what is anticipated growth for that cohort for this year. And I want to look at North Star data with you as well. North Star is a state accountability system. This is it's tied into World's Best Workforce and the ESSA law from federal government. This is Minnesota's way of meeting that. The big thing that the state talks about when they're looking at this data, it's not equality, it's equity. We're hearing a lot about equity across different things that we're going to. And it's really, are we providing for each child and adult learner in the system what they need to be successful? So looking at multiple data points and not just the test scores, because our students are so much more than test scores. So look at demographics, and the students coming in have different needs than students we had 10 years ago. So are we providing what each of those students needs to make growth? That's kind of what this slide explains. So the 3 different stages they're going to look at. It's a 3-stage process, and they make identifications once every 3 years. So last year we had identifications where we were award schools in a few areas, looking at some sub-demographic groups and stuff in these areas. This year isn't an identification year. There's no new identifications made, but they gave us our measures for this year. So I'll show you the measures for this year. And we'll look at all these different pieces. The indicators that we really talk about, it's achievement and progress in both reading and math over time. So looking at, are kids proficient? And for students that aren't proficient, are they making progress towards proficiency? So I'll show you those measures. For both reading and math are separate. They look at EL, proficiency and growth as well. That's using the access tests. So reading and math uses the MCA, and access is a test for EL learners that measures their language proficiency. Graduation rates and then consistent attendance are the other measures that North Star looks at, the state looks at when they're determining the North Star scores. The first one we'll look at is academic achievement rate. So this is measuring the percentage of kids who are in the meets or exceeds category on the MCA test in both reading and math. So two ways I'll show it to you. I have a chart I'll put up here, and then I'm going to show you the bar graph. One thing you'll notice is that the achievement rate, there's a percentage for every site. When you get to the growth charts, there aren't numbers for the high school and Maytech because they only take it once in the high school, so it isn't a previous year's score to compare it to. So we only look at the schools where they took the test 2 years in a row. With math achievement, so this is by building of West Side Middle School, high school for this one, Maytech, and then the district as a whole, and then compared to the state. So your numbers look very good compared to the state average here. You compare what percentage of our kids are achieving on the MCA test. Maytech, again, remember there were 14 kids at the school that took that one. So that one's a little bit deceiving in the bar graph.
Question, Jeremy. My understanding that kids can opt out now taking the MCAs?
It's always been an option with the state if families
Really?
choose to.
What
Yep.
percentage of our kids choose to opt out, do you know?
Very low. Yeah, very low, couple families. And it's usually for a very specific reason that they would. Yep, there's a test available for all students. So students with special needs, for example, there's an alternate test. So they don't have to take the traditional
knew
test.
that.
There's multiple tests students can take to measure, are they making progress? And we use it not just for individual students, but as a school, we use it to measure, talking with you guys, how are we doing as a school? What areas we look at to give us some nice reports at the end of the year that can break down by standard. Here's an area where this grade level really did a nice job on. Here's an area that maybe we want to look at. Have we identified the correct essential standards, or is there something the state's looking at that we missed or something like that? So some good conversations going on in PLCs around all this data.
Are we doing the dipstick test midwinter with NWEA?
We are, yep, in reading and math at all sites. The next one I'm going to show you is math growth. So the green bars in this are the percentage of students by building where their achievement level either decreased or if does not meet last year, stayed and does not meet this year. And the orange is looking at the percentage of kids whose level increased. So they went like from a partially proficient to a meets, or from a meets to an exceeds, something like that. And this is something, again, that each building is looking at. West Side certainly is one we're looking at. We know what happened. And with the growth, it'd only be fourth graders. And you look at the overall proficiency in the fourth grade, we had some numbers there we're considering what happened there last year. Other buildings, certainly it's exciting. I look at the increased percentage at the middle school, for example, is 28.4% versus the state average is 13%. So some really good things taking place there. Same thing with the district as a whole. Reading is presented in the same way. I have the chart first, and again, they only take it once at the high school, so sophomores take the reading test. There wouldn't be a freshman score to compare, so there's no growth comparison for there, but achievement rate is shown for these. And again, compared to the state overall, our district did well. We're ahead of the state in overall proficiency level. And the growth, I think this one's exciting too. When you think about, you asked earlier about the interventions we're doing, how meeting those needs. The state average growth, or where the percent of increase in level is 18%. We were high looking at West Side. We've been applying a lot of these different things. We're starting to bring some of that in the middle school right now, but we're over 20% at West Side, for example. So a lot of growth taking place. It's very encouraging to see that. Next one we'll look at is progress towards language proficiency. So this is looking at our EL students and the growth they're making. It looks at both percent of students proficient and percent of students making growth towards proficiency. So if they aren't at that achievement level yet, are they getting closer, making progress toward that? So this is the at proficient level, and this has each building is identified here. The state average was 40%. Look at our elementary schools; they're 53, 54% in each one. So that's good. Our EL program has done a lot of things looking at how to meet student needs and how to group kids, and really aligning to the content taking place in the classroom. So as they exit EL, they're prepared to be successful in the core classes as well. So a lot of good things taking place there.
And I think it's important to note here, research-wise, that for a person to become totally proficient in a language is a 7-year process.
It takes a long time.
Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So our data is really good comparatively.
And you compare, the state average, I think about the population in Marshall compared to some other districts around us, and you think about how many of our kids are coming to the high school with no language level.
Exactly.
And we're still at 38% in that category. So I think that's very exciting that they're making a lot of progress there. And our EL teachers work really hard and they do a really good job. So the other one was percent proficient. This is looking at the progress toward proficiency. Are students making growth on that access test and language proficiency? Again, these numbers look encouraging. The district and the state are on the far right, and each building listed off to the left. Parkside and Westside, again, that's where some of those reading interventions we've done are have been specific to elementary level so far. And it's showing that what we're doing is really working. Our kids are achieving at high levels. And of course, the other buildings look good as well, above the state. Graduation rate is another factor the state looks at. So they're going to look at both 4-year and 7-year rates. So thinking about students that enter high school and then in 4 years have they graduated, and then the second one is in 7 years have they graduated. I have that in a bar graph as well. The 4-year graduation rates, Maytech is a credit recovery program. I wouldn't expect that to be as high as a state average. That's comparing state of all high schools and our alternative school in there. And then you look at our high school, and then you pull up our 7-year rates. It's exciting to see that Maytech number looks good for an ALC compared to the state as a whole.
This has become a high priority for the governor.
Mm-hmm. And the high school rate is over the state average there as well. So that's some of those kids that are coming in with no education before getting here, low language levels, that kind of thing, considering in 7 years, over 94% of those students have graduated.
They graduated in 4 years, or are some of the seniors they still have to make up a credit, so they have to go to summer school to get that?
So then they'd be in the 7-year rate.
That'd be a 7, okay.
Yep.
But on the yearly rate, that would be a debit against us.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yep. And I think that's why they pull the two, because there's so many kids in that category.
Right.
So it's not just dropping off. It's have they now eventually looked at it. There's 5-year measures and such too, but for the North Star system, they look at 7. Consistent attendance then is the last area that we look at. So this is measuring the percentage of students who are in school more than 90% of the time when they're enrolled in school. And our numbers at every site look good here. The state average is 85%, and really our kids are coming to school. They're here. When they're enrolled, they're in school. I think that says a lot about our system as well. Students are feeling safe. They're feeling cared for. They're feeling like they're getting what they need when they're here. So what we did with that data is we sat down in an admin meeting maybe a month ago, and we went through each site talking about what they saw. We broke it down. They did a little activity where they dug through the data, and then they kind of made some talking points to bring back their staff. So I'll show you just an overview of that information, and the principals are using that as they're writing their skips for this year, looking at what was successes and such for last year, as I said, for this goals for this year. I put up the talking points from each site. I'll just share with you what they came up with, but I'm going to share with you specifically the SLT, kind of what they think they're going to do this year. Parkside's, after looking through their data, they're going to think specifically about how to improve percentage of students at grade level proficiency in reading and math. So they don't have MC at Parkside, it's looking at NWA data, but really think about how do we get more kids at that proficiency level. Westside wants to dig into math curriculum. Math is on a curriculum cycle. Year ones, we're starting that conversation district-wide, but Westside really wants to dig into some interventions specific to math, looking at their data from last year, with a focus on free and reduced, special education, and EL achievement gaps. And really, they talked also about triangulating the data. So thinking not just one test, but how are students doing if you compare multiple assessments together. We got a number of different measures we give. So not putting too much weight into one assessment. Middle school talking points, they want to use with their leadership team looking at indicated achievement gaps. So really thinking about where are the gaps in our building. And she talked about free and reduced, again, EL, SPED versus non-SPED, white versus not white. How do we break down some of those achievement gaps to show that we're closing some of that? And specific, they're really putting a lot of thought in their access data this year. So thinking about the EL students and how we're going to help increase that growth rate at that level. High school, looking at EL proficiency again, and fall to spring NWA growth in reading. That was an area they thought they wanted to spend more time on, and they had a number of different positive things that they found in their data. Maytech really wanted to break down and compare to other ALCs. You know, it's hard to compare Maytech to the traditional high school. When the state's given us traditional high school, they don't have a ALC category, so they were going to find other ALCs they can compare to and kind of create some data charts of their own, and looking at very specific grade level comparisons. I know as they're writing their skip plan this year, they're looking at graduation rates and how many seniors do we have and how close to graduation are they and how are we going to help these kids get to graduation by the end of the year. So a lot of good conversations taking place.
What percentage of students are Marshall students who attend Maytech? You know,
I don't know that off the top of my head. Trisha, do you have any idea? I could get that for you.
about half?
Half, yeah, I would say in that range.
50% are from other districts.
And we have a lot of, you know, I was looking at the Maytech actually enrollment data today, and it's with the CNA and the welding and stuff, it's harder for me to look at. When I was there, everyone was there all day, and just
I
it's
know,
a
yeah.
different beast now with all these other programs taking place, which is really good. But I can't look at it at a glance and tell you because I'm not as familiar with that data, but I can get you that number, Bill.
No, I was just wondering.
Yeah. Then we also looked at other subgroups. We looked at SPED rates, looking at the percentage of kids meeting exceeding state standards are higher than the state average for special ed students. Looking at percentage of students in special ed who are graduating in 4 and 7 years were higher in both categories. Achievement level was high, and attendance rate was high in that area as well, kind of like we saw with our overall data. EL we looked at as well, so that was another subgroup that we can break the test down into. Really thinking about what we're taking from that data is the strategic plan. Are we meeting the needs of all kids, and it's finding which ones within the EL groups? Is it a certain area that kids are struggling with that we're not meeting or something? So I want to really break down into that a little bit. And we're thinking about EL curriculum too. Are we providing the curriculum that's the best fit for some of those students?
Can you explain the almost second from the bottom there? More co-taught classes at the high school?
So the high schools to help students meet graduation, rather than saying we're going to put you in an EL class and build just language skills, they're doing some co-teaching where they're taking an EL teacher and putting in like a science class, like a biology class, because they need that biology credit to graduate. So just front loading that with the extra support from the EL so that a student who needs language support is getting it while they're earning the biology credit. Or social studies are kind of determining where those needs are, but a lot of that taking place at the high school, which has helped kids meet these content standards that are hard to meet.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yep, it's not teaching that skill in isolation. Then free and reduced, that is such a big group for us. So looking at, within that subgroup of kids, talking about the achievement gap, how are we going to close that? Our free and reduced attendance is lower than non-free and reduced attendance, which is, something that, even though our overall attendance was very strong, is there something we can do to address that? Our reading increased more than 30% than our non-free and reduced, but still we felt it was kind of a stagnant progression. So how can we increase that too? Looking at math progress, graduation rates, kind of breaking it all down within those areas, and I'll make sure as we're talking world's best workforce goals with closing the gap, are we hitting all the right areas? That's what I have. That's my last slide. Questions?
A lot of data.
A lot of stuff.
You're the data man, though.
That's what he tells me.
Nicely done. In the PLCs, they're looking at the data in terms of what do we need to do at this level?
They are, yeah.
Increase based upon the data that we have. From my experience in the past, the most beneficial data, immediate data, was the NWEA in terms of instruction. Is that still the focal point?
It is for most PLCs. Some find more data in other areas, but there's the benchmark report from the state is a really useful report where it breaks down by standard and says what progress is your district making, your grade level making by each of the standards in the cores you're reading in math
that
and
does
science.
that more identifies curriculum gaps, though.
Right.
rather
It kind
than
of depends on,
individual.
it kind of depends on each department and what it is they want to make growth in. I also have, so last year what I did is with each PLC, I tried to attend each PLC and walk through a data presentation, looking at subgroups and very specific data, demographic data with them. It took me until the end of November to get to all the PLCs, and that was crazy. We can't spend that much time. They need the data more relevant. So I put together some information for them that they're going through right now, having that conversation, thinking about what needs do we have, and then breaking down the groups that have the biggest need. But yeah, all the groups are really spending some time digging into that and saying, how are we doing? And if we're doing well, what do we do that we can replicate? And if we struggled in some areas, which areas were they, and how can we improve? Yep.
It's nicely done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm impressed with the growth.
I am too. It's exciting to see that. Think about all the work
You know-
that we've been
you know,
doing. It's
when I-
nice to see that.
Back after the dinosaurs died, when I came on the board, there was a lot of data, but nobody used the data
Exactly.
for any improvements. So I think it's a good progress that we've done, so
Right, right.
thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Moving on to our consent agenda, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Any questions? Not, let's vote. It is approved. Board forum, board members, anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
I attend the collaborative meeting since our last meeting, the Lincoln Land Children's Collaborative. We will be, and I gave the information to Dion, we will be receiving the same kind of income from them as last year. Dion works directly with Cindy Nelson from them in terms of the budgeting and so forth, so it's good.
It's good.
31,000 for the year.
The Bond Oversight Committee will be meeting next week. I think it's on my calendar. And then I also did attend a visit from Keith Ellison, which was really great. The Attorney General came out, spoke at the college, did all 5 through 8 middle school grades, so talked to 2 grades at a time, did a teacher meet and greet, which I attended, and then went out and spoke at the Dietz Farm for an hour. It was that portion of it was profiled in the paper, but he was very interested in what the needs are out here in rural Minnesota, and it was really fascinating to talk to him. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to our discussion items. On the policies listed here, this would be the second review. Did anybody have any questions on any of these policies? And then moving on for the school board calendar review. Did anybody have any comments on that? Plenty of snow days?
Snow this week?
No, not yet. And then we move on to our action items. Our first action item is to dissolve the cooperative sponsorship in girls hockey with Lakeview, Minneota Public Schools. We need to dissolve this so we can add another school. So I'll make a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Is approved. Now we move on to approve the girls hockey cooperative agreement with Wabasso, Lakeview, Minneota. Motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
And let's vote. It is approved. Folks, meeting's over. Thank you.
Thank you.